list overall and what it's actually attempting to tell us. So anyway, let's just jump right into it. So we got 8 banned cards. We got Glow Bulb and Dandelion. I believe these are just regulatory responses. We have Dandelion banned in the OCG or the TCG, but we don't have Glow Bulb banned, mostly because I don't think it's that much of an issue here. But I could foresee reasons why it's an issue over there. The play engine is really strong, specifically because and the fact that this card, that both these cards allow you to instant-link very easily, and Glow Bulb has a really good synergy with Needle Fiber. So, you know, it is what it is. Next we have Nightmare Goblin and Firewall Dragon. Firewall Dragon and Nightmare Goblin are copy-pasted straight off the TCG ban list. We have had these cards banned for, we had Nightmare Goblin banned on our 2 lists ago, I think, and Firewall just came on, just got put on our recent ban list. So it only makes sense because these 2 cards are kind of the centerpiece of all your extra link combos. I'm not really sure why number 95 is here. I watched Mega Capitals G and G's video about it, and I don't think anybody realistically knows why it's here. So I don't get it. Next is Blackwing Steam the Cloak. Again, same line of reasoning with Glow Bulb. It's really easy to exploit. It's with Crystal Needle Fiber. Stupid combos like that, so it makes sense. Epic Saber Evoker, again, just taking it off of our ban list and putting it on theirs. Evoker is kind of an insane card. It's been exploited throughout the history of the game ever since its inception. So I think this is just a fair response. Divine Sword Phoenix Blade. I agree that this is the only alternative hit to Assault. I honestly don't think you should hit Assault. I think you should hit this card because this card has been a problem for a while, whereas Assault is just kind of a necessary tool for warrior decks to just gain momentum. I don't think Assault should stay at any more than 3, but currently it's only being played at 2 at most. So we'll see where that lies. I'm not entirely sure of what to do with Isolde, but I think Isolde could go to 1 at some point, but maybe not right now though. Next we're going to move on to the limits. We have Altergiests Multi-Figure, which actually is kind of an interesting hit. Crystal Needle Fiber. This card is a 3 or 0 card in my opinion. It's kind of like Maxi. You either have this card you either have that card at 0 or at 3. Much like most hand traps, much like most generically decent link monsters, it's either a 0 of or a 3 of. And Crystal Needle Fiber is no different. Crystal Needle Fiber is obviously broken. We still don't have it in the TCG. I guess Konami is TCG. I guess Konami of the TCG is trying to spare us as much as possible from this kind of catastrophe, but it's bound to happen eventually. Astrograph Multi-Figure or Altergeist Multi-Figure is kind of a neat hit here. It slows the deck quite a bit to where they're not as explosive, but they still have cards like Meluseek, Personal Spoofing, which is at 2 on this list, to kind of just search this card out. You realistically only need 1 multi-figure, arguably, but you just play 3 because it's consistent enough, you know? Chronograph Magician, Pendulum Magicians have kind of been a sort of staple go-to deck in the OCG for like at least 2 years now. Kind of like how our problem is Burning Abyss, where Burning Abyss just seems to peek its ugly head every single format. I think that's the same thing here. They're just trying to deal with the popularity of the deck, I think. Chronograph Magician is not that strong of a card, but I can understand why they limited it. I think they should have just stuck with their guns and just banned Astrograph Sorcerer, or put, I'm not sure if Electromite is that one over there, but if it's not, then they should probably just went with that. Next we have Sky Striker Ace Kagari. Again, this is kind of one of those 3 or 0 cards. I think this card is easily fine at 1. It's still playable. The deck is a little bit harder, a little bit hurt because I think they still have Engaged at 2. This kind of just ultimately kills the deck, but like in a vacuum, let's discuss in a vacuum. Like if they just decided to limit Kagari tomorrow in the TCG, it probably wouldn't do anything to the deck. Because you realistically only need 1, because you could also just rely on Shizuku or Hayate or the future Earth one that we're getting relatively soon. So I'm not entirely sure why they decided to hit it now, of all things. So I mean obviously because the deck is still super popular, but I mean this seems like a kind of Salt and Moon kind of thing. Mathematician. This is kind of the reason why I wanted to make this video, but we'll talk about him in a minute. Basically, it's kind of the same reasoning as why Armageddon Knight should go to 1, or is at 1 in the TCG and is at 1 in the OCG. So, Damage Juggler. This card could go to 3 tomorrow. It probably wouldn't make it that much of a difference. Danglong should not be at 2. Danglong should be at 0. I think this is actually a really bad mistake, especially considering the fact that they still have Crest on Needle Fiber. So, it is what it is. Trickstar Candina. I think the deck is relatively well balanced as of right now. I think even the OCG, I think it's a little overbalanced, to be honest. Trickstars don't actually inherently do anything broken. It's just super popular and it's super fun to play for a lot of people. I don't like the deck personally, but you know, it is what it is. Candida kind of seems like it's falling into this Blackwing Syndrome sort of esque thing, where people are still playing this deck despite it not being that good of a deck, and then they just and then the comment is like, oh, this deck is still super popular. We're just going to keep hitting it until people stop playing it. So that's probably just a knee-jerk reaction that we're getting from Konami. It's not necessarily that Trickstars themselves are inherently a degenerate deck or anything like that, but I mean, people are just still wanting to play that deck for some reason. So, Fairy Tale Snow. I disagree with this vehemently. I think this card should be at 0. I don't think this card should be anywhere near 3. I don't even think it should be at 1. I think it should just go to 0. Because this card is overtly broken. It's not a hard once per turn, and it's very easy to exploit. It's kind of like Cannon Soldier in the modern day of Yu-Gi-Oh! It's kind of like Divine Sword of Phoenix Blade. It'll have that same effect. So, I think this is kind of not a good hit. Spellbook of Knowledge. The only reason why they're not playing the Spellbook engine is because Spellbook of Knowledge is at 1. Otherwise, they would definitely be playing that engine, because drawing 2 cards is definitely good. The reason why Spellbook of Knowledge probably got hit in the first place, the same reason why they hit Alistair, and like they still have invoked at Mechaba at 1, is because I guess the same reason why they hit Trickstar Candina and Chronograph Magician. Both of those that deck was extremely popular, and now that nobody's playing it anymore, they're just gonna slowly move cards off that list, and they're just gonna probably keep Mechaba at 1, but they're probably just gonna move Alistair and Spellbook of Knowledge and Spellbook of Secrets, I think, is that one over there, to 3, and they're just gonna like not speak of it ever again. So, Ceasefire. Moving on, personal spoofing. Again, two spoofing is fine. I think I think you only realistically could feasibly still play the deck of 2, and it would still be rather consistent. I think the proper. I think if you're going to hit any trap in the deck, I think you should probably hit Impermanence or Manifestation. But I guess spoofing is okay. But you know, I'm not really that much of an Altergiests player, so maybe they can educate me on why spoofing over Manifestation. So anyway, next we're moving on to the elements. They're not too relevant, especially considering the fact that one of the card has 2 cards banned, or one of the decks has 2 cards banned. Dante, not terribly relevant. This might push Burning Abyss over the top, though. I'm not entirely sure about that, but it could. Cherubini is over there, but I don't think the deck has had that much of a success in the OCGs as far as popularity is concerned, so maybe the only reason why they hit it was because it was actually a super strong deck, and don't get me wrong, it's a super strong deck, but I think overall it's kind of just faded into obscurity over there. So, Necros of Bionic, I'm not entirely sure. People are actually thinking that this card, that because this card going to 3 means that the entire deck is busted again. I disagree. Necros was actually in a format where it was more of a control-heavy format. We also had Snatch Steal back during that time, and Snatch Steal overtly made this deck even better. Just it's sitting on a random card. There were some actually wonky rulings with Snatch Steal that I've actually encountered before that makes Djinn kind of stupid. By the way, they still have Djinn at 3, so that might be the reason why the deck is still super. The deck might actually be super good, and why people might actually be afraid of it, because Djinn is currently not forbidden on the OCG list. So who knows? I think I'm leaning towards it's not going to be that strong, but we'll have to wait and see, right? True King's Return. I mean, this deck is still pretty much dead because they still don't have Masterpiece and they still don't have Diagram. So I mean, this is not really a thing. This is like a throwaway list, throwaway hit, or throwaway, thing. Ring of Destruction, kind of the same thing. No one's actually playing this card like in 2018. Like, no one actually played this card other than like maybe Chainburn, and that was actually dealt with on our last ban list with Chain Strike going into 1, which I was clamoring for actually ever. But the Ring of Destruction is kind of a interesting generic card. It's not powerful at all, but I mean, it's good to see it at 3 though. So now on to the little brief discussion that I kind of wanted to have, and it actually falls with this card. It actually made me want to talk about this because there's a lot of people actually kind of disagreeing vehemently with this hit, and I think this is actually trying to send a message from Konami about this whole game. Generic cards, while they might be super fun and they should be implemented occasionally to spice up the game, eventually you're going to reach a point where there's too many generic cards and they reach a critical mass, which means there's going to be so many decks with just generic cards in them that there's not going to be any archetypes specifically for them. Like, for example, we saw this perfectly well with Go Control and Teledad and Airblade Turbo. Those cards, all 3 of those decks, didn't necessarily play as an archetype. They played with generic cards, and they were super busted. Like, I think every single card in Go Control was a generic card. Every single card in Teledad was kind of generic. The only non-generic card in Airblade Turbo was literally Stratos, and that was the most generic hero card in the entire game. So I honestly think that the reason why Mathematician got hit is the same line of reasoning as why Armageddon got hit and why Foolish Burial should still be at 1, is because eventually these kind of cards that send cards to the graveyard, there's going to be a critical mass where you're just going to be super consistently sending every single card to the graveyard. And while Mathematician might not present a problem here in the TCG, it could very well present a possible problem in the future. And also, technically speaking, these cards, like Armageddon Knight, Foolish Burial, and Mathematician, they also limit card design for Konami to make. They can't make these overtly generic or overtly broken cards that work off the graveyard. It's the reason why I'm so against Fairy Tale Snow, is because of Foolish Burial effects like these, just sending these off for free. And like I said, again, eventually you're gonna, like, in the best case scenario, you have 12 that technically, if you consider Unizombie a Foolish Burial, to send cards from the death graveyard. You have these generic cards that are just going to make the game less healthy overall. I'm fine with archetypes getting their own specific cards that are Foolish Burials. I'm totally fine with Satellar's getting their own Foolish Burial and other decks like that getting their own Foolish Burial, because for the most part it's fine. It's only sending their version, their own cards. They're not sending every single card that they can think of to the graveyard. And additionally, cards like Mathematician, they get a little bit more value out of cards like other than Foolish Burial, because Armageddon Knight and Mathematician are both monsters. Mathematician is 1500, Armageddon is 1400 attack. That actually has a little bit more significance than Foolish Burial, which is just a spell which sends itself to the graveyard afterwards, and the effect is over. These cards have a longer impact than Foolish Burial because of the fact that they're monsters. Additionally, Mathematician also draws a card when it dies, so it not only thins your deck once, it thins your deck twice. So I think for the most part, I think this is only a logical conclusion that we can make with this ban list. Is the reason why this list even happened is because of a critical mass of generic cards in the OCG, as well as extra linking your opponent being super prevalent and Crystal Needle Fiber being such a cancerous piece of garbage in the game. So, I mean, honestly, I think this is a very strong list. There are some things that I find questionable. I find Candina a little bit questionable. I find Kigari a little bit questionable, but other than that, I honestly don't think this is a too terrible of a list. Tell me about Galaxy Dark Matter Dragon. I haven't seen that card played since it was released in the Gold Series, and they had to ban Dragon Rulers because of it. But anyway, tell me what you guys think about this list in the comment section down below. I'll see you guys in the next video. This has been Just Alliance signing out.